welcome back to my channel, IndigoAngel. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe and check out the content on my channel. And as always, if you're new or returning, don't forget to hit the notifications bell to continue to stay connected and receive my messages. Now today I do have an Arcturian Stargate grid activation, which would be activating the planetary grid site, the sacred site, the planetary chakra of Lake Titicaca, Peru. Okay, and so I'm going to explain to you guys how and why I'm making these connections, how this is aligning according to the alignment with the sun and with the planet, and how this is coming through the ley lines and the grid lines, and how this is activating this sacred site. So this message today and planetary grid activation is for those of you with Arcturian origins, soul genetics, and activated celestial templates of the Arcturian radial light source. Why Arcturus coming right out of the Lion's Gate, you ask, right? Because we're technically, not really in a dead-on alignment with Arcturus, because here is Arcturus, this lovely Boots constellation here, and Arcturus is down by the lake. So technically we don't really come into Arcturus until we are within the Libra constellation, and that is about, I would say about mid-October, a little bit before mid-October. And the interesting thing about Arcturus is it does align at the tail end of Hydra. Okay, so here is Hydra, and everybody who knows me, who follows my channel, knows that I am a Hydra starseed. I have Hydra within my moon position within my natal chart. And so I'm very, very connected to this celestial radial light, this celestial body in the sky, which is the largest constellation in the sky and rides the southern hemisphere of the ecliptic plane. So you will hear me putting out a lot of Hydra starseed messages and kind of using Hydra as a template to express even stages and phases of creation itself, having this celestial body being right underneath the equatorial plane on the southern end. It has a anti-particle creational aspect to it, being the snake, being the serpent, representing that connection to earth, belly to belly with the earth. So this is usually according to my last starseed message. So if any of you caught my Hydra starseed message, I was talking about how we align to the Lion's Gate through the head of Hydra, and then we come into that celestial body, and essentially this activating the planetary grid site, Sarasota, Florida, which represents inner earth. And so that grid site essentially is a birthing or a rebirthing of consciousness through that grid site, and it's the place where consciousness kind of bursts through the planet. That's why the Bermuda Triangle is considered the third dimensional planetary grid site, which I'll get into in a little bit here. But yeah, so I don't want to go into this too much because this is an Arcturian Starseed message. But if you would like to check out the Hydra Starseed message, it's going to explain all of this in thorough detail for you guys, okay? So, like I said, why Arcturus activating and coming through right after the Lion's Gate? Okay, so we typically begin to align in a solar rising expansion to the eastern aspect of the northern hemisphere. Okay, so what I mean by that is the sun is actually, the trail of the sun is coming from the eastern aspect of the sky, and it's coming from a northern or an eastern to northern to southern to western setting. Okay, so anything that kind of blazes that trail or blazes within that path, any celestial stargate that is being illuminated within the solar aspect, is essentially activating within the planet, activating within our body, within those ley lines, those meridian lines, those grid lines, all of the axial tonal lines within the body. Okay, so it's basically like a holographic radial template that essentially brings these cosmic intelligences, these cosmic photonic energies to consciousness. And especially if you live on an axial tonal or a grid line, you're going to even be more hyper tuned to that, which most of you actually are. And that is something that I've been finding with my dear astrologer friends, Owen Glendower from Starseed Zodiacs, is we kind of keep track of where some of our friends are located. And so that's another way that we keep track of the grid networks. You can see on my map here that I have all of the celestial stars on a grid network, which also helps to align this to the planetary map, which I have, which I'm going to show you. Okay, so this map here is a Mercator map of the starry heavens, comprehending the whole equatorial and terminated by the polar circle. And it also puts all of these celestial bodies in comparison to the dates that they align. So this would be the equatorial line here, or the equatorial plane. And then within this, you can't really see on the video, but I have the months that everything is coming into alignment on here as well with the actual dates. So it's a great map to have if you're an astrologer, if you are wanting to learn more about the positioning and all of where everything basically is located in accordance to the equatorial plane, because I do believe that there is some confusion when it comes to where they're actually located. I think that it's actually taken me quite some time in my journey to be able to identify northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, all of those things. So it's a process of learning astrology. As the sun comes through this path, it's illuminating all of these stargates. Okay, so through that alignment, Arcturus, through the rising and the culmination point of the sun, Arcturus would be activating through the equatorial plane and through the body of Hydra. Hydra is connected to a lot of constellations because there are a lot of constellations that are within her body. She extends from mid-July all the way till mid-October. So we're actually feeling this a lot more as we begin to align to the gates anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks before we actually come into its planetary markers according to Western astrology culmination degrees of the stars. Okay, so I've been finding this to be delayed due to the gradual precession of the vernal equinox. So those of you who know the difference between sidereal and Western astrology will notate that sidereal adjusts according to the gradual precession and Western astrology does not. So I personally resonate more to the sidereal when attempting to get your degree positioning as close as you can to the original Earth template. And the original Earth template is being the closest your energetic system can get to the most harmonious, synergistic frequency with the planetary quantum. Okay, so when you come into that state of harmonization, which would be your 13th dimensional avatar body, your 13th dimensional avatar consciousness. This is a clairvoyant and telepathic ability to access the center psychic core of the planet, okay? So when your consciousness can essentially project or teleport or simultaneously electronically data stream information from the center psychic core, you can essentially activate all of the planetary grids within your body according to the 12 primary axial tonal lines that I'm going to show you guys here really quickly. Okay, so this would be considered the 12 primary axial tonal lines of the Cathara level of the 12 crystal seals grid. Okay, so each one of these lines is going to coordinate to a strand of the DNA, a chakra, a Cathara center, and I do teach about Cathara grids, so I'll leave a link at the top, but I have a great video on Cathara grids. I also am going to start teaching about Cathara grids in my bioregenesis, which is exclusive to my Patreon patrons, or you can book a session for bioregenesis. I highly encourage you to do that, as it is rooted in morphogenetic sciences. These are proven sciences to specifically and strategically expand portions of platforms of consciousness. So yes, highly recommend that. But to keep moving along here, they also correspond to an interdimensional color wave spectra, and they also correspond to a dimensional number. Okay, so these lines here actually correspond to the specific planetary grid networks, which are rotating single axis flash line sequences from the seed crystal seals cross over through each other, and they to form 12 primary vertical flow lines within the body. The axial atonal lines create the web work of energy upon which the Cathara grid and the deodotic points and the DNA manifest. Okay, so these are all getting into pre-creational aspects, because it's taking your consciousness into a quantum space where you're not only parallel within your consciousness, but you're in pre-consciousness. So you're conscious within the pre-conscious sphere of your mind. So you are very conscious of these base radial manifestation templates. And this comes through deep inner clearing, deprogramming, all of that good stuff. You guys know. I know you know. But essentially, yes, so this would be the central body current and the heart line. And this is what it looks like within the body. This would be considered like your central nervous system, and how firing codons activate and trigger within the DNA. This would also be the holographic structure of the light body. Okay, so this is why one would, feel like their body is technically glowing or illuminated or, expanding geometrically inside themselves, is because these ley lines, these gridding structures, literally are completely without the entire structure of your human body. So as you guys know, this is really what it's all about, is aligning to your avatar consciousness, aligning to your 13th dimensional perception of fully embodied Christed consciousness, okay? And this would be aligning to your most natural state. So that is why you'll notice the celestial activations coming in way sooner. Like I said, that 4 to 8 week time frame of awareness to that activation is because a lot of these delayed perceptions are according to our recording systems that we have. So as you know, that's really what it's all about, ultimately, is aligning to the most natural state of being. And that is why you'll notice the celestial activations coming in way sooner, is because a lot of these are delayed perceptions. And that is why we activate to it sooner. And it seems delayed. It seems like consciousness is activating way sooner than it should according to these alignments. Okay, so if let's say the sun traveled north to south, we technically wouldn't feel the activations of Arcturus until we're into Libra, until we're into mid-October. But since the sun comes through this alignment, this direction, we're actually coming into it and reflecting through the equator at a lot sooner state. So let's say this is the true angulation, and I'm not gonna get the angulation of the sun correctly. There's no way that I could possibly know if it's here, or if it's like here. I don't know that. I would need specific instrumentation to be able to record that more specifically, but I'm going off of my intuition. I'm going off of what I am awakening to inside. And Arcturus has been basically tipping off my celestial electronic data streaming, right? The way that the imprint enters space of perception is because of the markers that are activating, because Arcturus will align through that tail of Hydra. Okay. And we are essentially riding the tail of Hydra all the way through mid-October. So why Hydra is so illuminated, why this is so constantly being illuminated, even through my Arcturian Starseed message. Well, Hydra is kind of like the underworld, or the emergence of antiparticle energy from that grid site number 2 in Inner Earth, or Sarasota, Florida, because she rides the southern belly of the ecliptic plane. And she actually has a lot to do with this sacral grid activation, which is Lake Titicaca, Peru. And there's a reason why Arcturus is connected to it. There's a very profound reason why Arcturus is connected to it. Okay, so in this Hydra energy actually enters into the body through the warmest waters, which would be right there on the coast of Sarasota, Florida. So you'll see here we have Sarasota, Florida, and this whole area here, here's the Bermuda Triangle. This is grid site 3. This would be the 3rd dimension technically, or 3rd density of the planet. This is where all of the finances and wealth is actually held in the world, as all of North American top 1% actually keep their wealth within the Cayman Islands. Okay, so it's a generator of energy, and it basically is also a place where energy is dispersed, okay, because it's highly and heavily connected to Giza, Egypt. So if you drew a straight line from here to here, this is considered gate site 4, which would be that 4th dimensional platform within the Universal Templar of the planet. And this aligns to actually some of the most northern, most highly illuminated celestial bodies. And if you check out my video, the Avian Power Trinity, you would see that there is actually a cross-hatched grid that would align to Cygnus, Altair, and Deneb. Cygnus, Altair, Deneb, and Aquila in the sky. So this 30-degree marker is a very important horizontal ley line that essentially would activate that 3rd dimensional Templar or Templar site, or planetary Stargate site within the planet, that essentially is the process of fruition, the process of matter and emergence from that underworld dimensional access point. It's kind of like the crystal seal is removed, and these grid sites are illuminating one another and activating. Okay, so not far below that within South America is Lake Titicaca, and this is the one we're going to be talking about today. So they're all very, very connected to one another, kind of like in alignment with their activations. It's like one will align and activate within the body, within the planet, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. They follow this like a structure, like a sequencing of flashing on and off, where they're basically generating energy from one another. So yes, like this energy is entering into the body through the warmest waters, the blood and the heart, and that's all coming from Sarasota, Florida. Now, when attuning to these frequencies of the Stargates even earlier, and another thing that I've been notating is that I'm actually attuning to the frequency of the Stargates even earlier than sidereal alignments, which I'm noticing about an 8-week advancement, as it's mid-August and we align at mid-October fully to Arcturus within the antiparticle emergence of Hydra. But I'm also starting to see we don't really align at the marker. It's always advanced. So there's definitely like a deficiency or a lack of ability of our astrological systems to keep up with the pure accuracy of the planetary and celestial markers positioning, because Arcturus is activating within the southern hemisphere of the equatorial plane. Okay, so Arcturus is considered Lake Titicaca. This here, I've been showing this quite a bit in a lot of my videos, but this is my own one that I drew up. This is the primary Universal Stargates of the Universal Templars, in accordance to Guardian Consciousness, in accordance to the Voyager's book. and accordance to this map, the Halls of Amenti Planetary Interface Gate Map and Tandem Grid Keys. Okay, so these are all in accordance to each one of these spheres is a location on the planet and also a stargate or a celestial body. So Arcturus, which is Gate 7, this is Lake Titicaca, Peru. So why is that? And how is that, right? Because if you look at my map, here's Lake Titicaca, Peru. If you look at the Stargate map, Arcturus doesn't even sit on the southern aspect of the equatorial plane, right? So how could we possibly make these conclusions? And I'm trying to provide theory for that today, which is that the way that the sun rises and culminates and sets through these gates, which is at this eastern to northern to southern to western rising, culmination, and setting aspect, that it activates through other celestial bodies as well. So Arcturus is going to be activating through the heart, through Alphard even. Because wow, look at that alignment. Here is Arcturus, and here is the heart of Hydra, which is Alphard. Okay, so you can see that if the sun crosses the equatorial plane at that angulation, that Arcturus would line directly with the heart of Alphard. Well, you're gonna really freak out because Lake Titicaca has some incredible things going on with serpent temples when I was researching it. So I'm gonna tell you guys all about that connection, which is really, really profound. You know, but our astrological systems, they do the best that they can. And I feel like, you know, they're pretty close for the most part. It's just the reason why you feel these alignments way sooner is because it's in accordance to your own innate frequency scanning gridding system that is way more advanced than sciences and historical systems, because it's a vibration, it's an activation within your DNA. So your body's gonna be telling you that you're aligning to this radial light source way before on an intuitive level than your calendar system, right? You know, we're all coming into this perception because our body is activating this planetarily. We cannot deny these perceptions and these activations and these templates that are emerging from our own manifestation templates, our own Cathara grids, our own dimensional foundations of how we perceive this energy. And then also another thing too is that the Catharas, our own personal Catharas, will activate in accordance to these location and application sequences. So these actually represent the points in the body that the Cathara, they are the temples. They represent the soft temples of the body. And so Arcturus being gate 7 would represent the sacral chakra, right? Because this number 7 is located here down by the sacral. And these would be considered deodotic points in the body. And this is our most sensitive places where that energy is transferring, integrating, reflecting, absorbing. Okay, so this chakra is heavily activating. And now I can explain this. So when you look at this, Alphard Arcturus connection, it doesn't seem so far off. It doesn't seem so wild because Lake Titicaca has these serpent ruins and the serpent temples that were all left by presumably the Incas, or maybe even before the Incas. But essentially, Lake Titicaca is considered the sacral chakra of the planet, and according to the deodotic points of the body, according to celestial Catharas, number 7 is the sacral chakra. So it does all align. It does all match up. And that's what's so incredible and so beautiful about it is our bodies are telling us exactly what we need to know about the stars. We just have to be able to tune our minds in to come to embody and attune to these multiple God worlds. A very deep process of quantum jumping within and taking one very deep into the galactic realms. The Cathara being that base radial template for all manifestations. So these spheres are interdimensional platforms for consciousness within one God world. As everything is activating within you, and your neurological sensing system is interpreting that radial light source activation within. And so the sacral chakra planetarily is highly activating. So you may have noticed within the last week that your sexual appetite has probably, activated. You're probably feeling very sensual, romantic. You may have called in a new relationship, a new partner, or you've rekindled your relationship with the partner you're with, or you're just super off the charts horny, whatever it is. That sacral is really, really, really activating planetarily. And then it's also, I feel, causing a planetary throat chakra reset, because you might have noticed over the last couple weeks, I know I've talked to many of you and you've told me that you've lost your voice. Your throat has gone through a recalibration. I know for me last week, I could hardly get through some of my videos. I was like having to drink a lot of water and even get some throat lozenges because I could barely hold my voice for a very long period of time. So we're going through sacral chakra and throat chakra. Sacral chakra is heavily connected to the throat chakra. And that was something that I learned as a Reiki practitioner, is that energetic system is very connected to one another. So when one is going through a download, activation, integration, upload, whatever, this one is equally and simultaneously going through that recalibration. So I feel that planetary collective as a whole is going through sacral and throat chakra recalibration. According to this, Cathara points for regeneration. And some of you asked me for this information a while back, and I just kind of put a pin in it. But if you were someone who asked me and you're watching, these, like I said, are the points in the body according to the Cathara deodotic points. And what I mean by that is these Cathara spheres, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 13, are aligned here on the body. So the Arcturian gate would be down in the sacral chakra according to this location and application sequence, but equally within the primary Universal Stargates Cathara Templar, which is the celestial base radial manifestation template for the planet that aligns in accordance to the Halls of Amenti planetary interface gate map and tandem grid keys. So everything that is here is the same on this map. Okay? So this being number 7, the sacral chakra. So the Arcturian gate, which is the 7th council, is grid site Lake Titicaca, Peru. It sits at about 15 degrees of the southern ecliptic plane. And like I said, we made that connection through the heart of Alphard, through the rising, culmination, and setting aspect of the sun. And you'll also notice that Machu Picchu is number 5. Okay, so this one isn't activating as much as the Arcturian gate, but it's still going to be activating because it's such in a relativity to one another. And Machu Picchu is at about 12 degrees of the southern ecliptic plane, all activating on the southern horizontal primary ley lines. So the ley lines are just like we have our own energy centers and chakras. Mother Earth has hers. So when you start looking into the nature of this universe and Earth, you will start to see how everything is a mirror. Within us is a universe, and around us is a universe that we are all connected to. We are connected to Mother Earth through the subtle electrical currents that run around the entire planet. These electrical currents are known as the ley lines. and are almost like Mother Earth's veins. Just like we have the veins that flow in and out of the heart, Mother Earth has her ley lines. And they coil around the earth in a similar fashion, kind of like a DNA strand. So these ley lines are an equivalent to these lines within the body. And, you know, they intersect and are believed to be high points of energy or high concentrations of electrical charge. These ley lines are also said to take information or energy from these higher vibrational points and carry them around the world, spreading knowledge and wisdom to all inhabitants. These intersecting points along the ley lines are also coincidentally home to some of the most sacred temples and monuments in the world, including, you know, the Egyptian pyramids, Machu Picchu, Stonehenge, Angkor Wat. When you look at the advanced civilizations like ancient Egypt, it's clear that they seem to understand the energy and power of ley lines. So everything that we're talking about today is based on these knowledges. So yes, I do feel that Arcturus aligns through the gate of Hydra. And what's even more called to my attention is this confirmation through the actual reasons why about this sacred site on the planet. So you guys are going to be like totally blown away when you find out what I'm about to tell you. If you look at Lake Titicaca, it's essentially the highest navigable lake in the world, the largest lake in South America. Lake Titicaca in Peru, it sits on the border of Peru and Bolivia. And it's a perfect representation of kundalini energy rising to the sexual chakra of the earth. The native lore is said that this lake was created by the rainbow serpent and is where primal energy itself is born. And teams of international archaeologists found ruins and an underwater temple in Lake Titicaca, Peru. And not only that, but there is actually these serpent temples. It's called Santiago de Ahoy or something like that. But it's the main head. There's a main serpent head within this sacred serpent temple location. That serpent head is actually burned off and damaged by fire. I'm gonna actually put a picture up here for you guys so you can see. But this serpent temple was essentially forged through some type of fire. And it's really interesting. The Incas actually say that Lake Titicaca is the place where sacred fire perpetually burns. So there's a lot of connections to fire here. And also Mount Shasta. There's a connection to Mount Shasta. So it's transmitted to Lake Titicaca via the Great World Ley Line Artery. It's called the Plumbed Serpent. This life-giving telluric current encircles the world, and it has its invocational home at the Tule tree in Mexico. So Lake Titicaca is one of the two greatest lay crossroads on Earth. The rainbow serpent intersects the plumbed serpent at the island of the sun. And if you look at the pictures of the megalithic site, it has 8 snake heads all facing south. And the Inca's traditions say the snake is the protection of Mother Earth, and I've been guided through my Hydra activations to say that the snake is actually the identity of Mother Earth. And the parallelism and the synchronicity of these gate sites is in accordance to the celestial stars that are guiding the natural intelligence of the planet, and you can see why this is the sacral chakra of the planet. You know, when it has the highest waters in terms of elevation. So it's just like when this grid site activates, the whole planet is like in abundance of that sexual kundalini alpha omega energy. So you will have definitely felt within the last week an emergence and an insurgence of that energy within you, for sure. Kundalinis are just firing off right now. And it can almost be overwhelming. It can be almost overbearing to a point that you're having to meditate a lot more to get through it, or you're seeking outside of yourself right now. There might be some of that going on to try to tame this sensual beast that might be kind of just really activating within you right now. And what does this mean if you are of an Arcturian origin, right? Because it kind of broadens this perception to greater possibilities within the serpent lineage. Because I've always thought of Arcturus as the most angelic origin, the most intelligent origin. And to realize that maybe Arcturus is more a part of these serpent sacred megalithic sites and planetary chakra grid points. You know, it's broadening this integration of these deeper meanings and what it means to come into the realization of your starseed origin. So, you know, now I'm coming into this perception that if someone has heavy Arcturian markers, well, they are very much connected to the heart of the serpent. They are very much connected to the sacral chakra. This would be where they generate their manifestation templates, their Cathara grids, their base radial template. They are very connected to water. I would say that the Arcturian gate site is connected to water almost just as much as the Syrian gate site, but in a different way, in a different sense. Syrian being more of that mother energy, more of this higher, I don't want to say higher, but just like, you know, dolphins, whales, more earth related. It's different perceptions of water connections. So I'm not quite sure how to word that exactly, but I know you guys get what I'm saying here. It's a different perception of water connection. It's a different vibration and attunement and ideology or conceptualization of how it's connected to water. And Arcturus would be connected to the heart of Hydra, connecting us to the sacral chakra of the planet, Lake Titicaca, Peru. This is the grid site that's activating for you guys. And yeah, so major sacral rewrites, major planetary throat chakra rewrites right now, guys. And yes, that is my message today for you. Here's another one that I have. This is kind of also in comparison to how the Cathara would sit on the human template. Okay, this would be a personal Cathara grid, which is linked at Earth's core. Okay, so this linking system is at the Earth's core. You consider this the equatorial plane. And then this would be the planetary Cathara grid of Earth. So yes, you know, the morphogenetic fields are of species that are interwoven into the larger morphogenetic field of the planet that they inhabit. There is a direct energetic connection between the Cathara grids of the individuals and that of the planetary body. This connection between personal and planetary Cathara grids is called the planetary biofeed interface systems. And this is how, you know, and then there's also another one I feel if you watch my Cathara video, you'll see how I go into the 48 genetics, how there's a Cathara here and there's a Cathara here. I believe that these are different manifestation templates, but each one of these essentially represent a God world that one can activate and attune to and bring to consciousness from the subconscious and from those quantum states of creation. But yeah, so I hope that you all enjoyed this message today. Arcturian Starseeds, you're beautiful and you are very connected to Lake Titicaca. So just keep that in mind. I know that's a funny word to say, but there's a reason why it's called Titicaca. You know, you could see how that connection to the sacral, to that central energy, is through some of these, you know, funnier words that we use to describe our body parts. But yes, if you are interested in my bioregenesis sessions, please feel free to reach out to me. We could get you scheduled for bioregenesis. And also, if you would like a celestial Akashic record reading to pull your starseed origins in accordance to the original Earth template. All of my starseed origin readings are in accordance to the original Earth template and I have designed this system myself, and I'm very, very proud to be able to offer this to you guys. I do really, really believe in it, and it's really nice to have your origins in accordance to I feel the closest synergistic aspect that you can get to your harmonious state with the planet. And yes, so namaste, and I love you guys so much, and I will be back with another collective message. Have a beautiful, wonderful everything.